Now it's good. Now I can give you permission. All right. Yeah. Okay. So let us then start with mantra. Om Vame manasi pratishthitam manome vachi pratishthitam aviravirmaeti vedasya ma'ani sthaha shrutam me ma prahasihi anena dhitena horatram samdadhami ritam vadishyami satyam vadishyami tammamavatu tadvaktaramavatu avatu mam avatu vaktaram avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we had this hymn, which is dedicated to Mitra and Varuna. And we read first 3 verses. And we were reading a lot from Sri Aurobindo's commentaries last time, from Savitri even. And somehow we had to clarify those few shlokas. So it's a very short hymn, but beautiful. And so Sri Aurobindo gives an introduction, the givers of self-rule. The Rishi invokes Varuna, the vast form of the truth, and Mitra, the beloved Godhead of its harmonies. Yeah, am I soft? Is it really so? Is it better now? Yeah, okay, it's better. I think this microphone is a little bit. So, yeah, the Godhead of its harmonies, Mitra, the beloved, and large bliss, who conquer, they both conquer for us the perfect force of our true and infinite being, to change our imperfect human nature into the image of their divine workings. Then the solar heaven of the truth is manifested within us. Its wide pasture of herding illuminations becomes the field of journeying of our chariots. The high thoughts of the seers, their purified discernment, their rapid inspirations become ours. Our very earth becomes the world of that vast truth. It is really profound when you read this, if you tune yourself to this language, to this vision. Our inner worlds become pervaded by the truth, by these, solar heavens of the truth. They are manifested in us, in our inner worlds. It is in us this vast, wide pasture of herding illuminations becomes the field of journeying for us, of our chariots, of our swiftnesses, of our movements, discoveries, the high thoughts of the seers, the purified discernment, their rapid inspirations become ours. Everything which was theirs becomes ours. our very earth becomes the world of that vast truth. And then everything what we carry within becomes the manifestation or the environment of the truth for us outside also. So there is no difference between the inner and outer in the Veda. You don't feel that difference. There is no border. So everything what we live inside and outside is very similar. When we live falsehood inside, we will have falsehood outside. How can we hope that truth outside will manifest without manifesting first inside? There is no way that the truth can be outside if inwardly we live in the falsehood. So it has to manifest within first. Then our very earth, our very material existence becomes the world of that vast truth. For then there is the perfect movement, the transcendence of this darkness of sin and suffering. We arrive at self-empire, a rich, full, and vast possession of our inner being. This kind of, non-discrimination between outer and inner, you find only in the Veda. And Sri Aurobindo understands this very well. That's why he writes in this way. Yeah? Somebody wants to say something. Gregory, that's you? You want to say something?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Actually, Vlad,
yeah.
I could make a comment. Can you scroll back up just a little? When I find it to be beautiful, and what you just said around the inner and the outer. On the one hand, I take it to mean something obvious, and yet why, when we speak about this from the perspective of the Veda, this idea of there being even a separation between inner and outer, or this idea to change what was said here, our imperfect human nature into the image of their divine workings. How would you then explain or think of this idea that there is perfection in everything? I mean, I understand on the one hand, I'm just trying to get into this thing of the inner and the outer, that sort of sparked my curiosity in the way, could you just speak more to the inner and the outer as well?
Right. Well, when we speak about the outer, that means it is less conscious, yeah? It has to become more conscious, and that is the sacrifice. We bring Mitra and Varuna for that. We want them to become, we want our outer nature, which is less conscious, to become or to turn into the image of their divine workings. We are longing for that. We want them to take charge of our imperfect human nature, imperfect in the sense that it is not fully conscious. We cannot deny it. We cannot say that everything is perfect. Yeah? It is only from the point of view of transcendence that everything is perfect. But from the point of view of this manifestation in time and space, the perfection can be achieved more and more. There are grades of perfection. The truth is covered by the truth, yeah? That's the answer to that, yeah, if we look. There is no perfection of a static kind, which is in this world. So it is in dynamic, it is in time and space. So there is always room for perfection. And that where they come in. Of course, from the point of view of the lower consciousness, the animal kingdom could be a great perfection from the point of view of minerals, and it could be already an achievement. But from the point of view of human nature, animal kingdom can be quite a stage where, or from the point of view of animal kingdom, humans can be a great achievement. From the point of view of monkey, human mind and civilization could be a great achievement. But from the point of view of humans, if you look at the divine nature, which we are to reach and to realize, it can be something similar, as Sri Aurobindo compares, that we will look on the supramental consciousness manifested in man in the same way as monkey looks at human beings. There would be the same distance. So there is. And somebody asked him, and then what? Okay, if we achieved that divine realization, so would that come to the end? And he answered very beautifully that there is always something to learn from infinity. So it will never stop. There will be always growth of consciousness, infinite growth of consciousness. But we will grow not from darkness to light, as he says. We will grow from light to greater light. That would be our growth in the future.
So meaning that the inner, is infinite in realization of consciousness, and that the outer is infinite in the manifestation or the crystallization of consciousness into matter. That a correct statement?
Yeah, can you imagine such a manifestation where there is always something to manifest new from the infinite, supreme? There is an infinity of his possibilities, and we can't really, exhaust that origin. We cannot exhaust. We cannot come to the, to the stage where there is nothing to achieve or nothing to learn or nothing to evolve to grow into. So there will be always something. But there will be a different nature already. There will be a different consciousness. And it's very difficult to imagine for monkey, for example, achievements of human civilization, or for fish to imagine the animal kingdom, or for minerals even to think anything. So, but on each level there is a certain perfection, certain achievement, certain fundamental, true divine realization. So that's how rishis speak. Ritenartam apihitam dhurvamam. Actually, it is again about Mitra and Varuna. Your truth is covered by the truth. Truth is covered by the truth. It's fundamental vision of the Veda. So when you say that everything is perfect, it's very Vedic what you say. And at the same time, there is still some more perfection can be gained. And that's the sacrifice. Well, there is no negative approach here. You see, everything is included. Everything finds its place in this vision. All right. So we read these few very nice quotations here also from Sri Aurobindo and from about Ritam and Satyam. And we read these shlokas. Achikitana sukratu devau marta reshadasa varuna ya arta pesha se dadhita praya se mahe. O mortal who awakens to knowledge, call to thee the two Godheads who are perfect in will and destroyers of thy enemies. Interesting how he adds thy enemies, because we have enemies within. We have enemies who do not want us to grow in consciousness. They want us to stay, not to evolve. They want us to sustain ourselves in the same way. They insist that that perfection which was gained is enough for us. Please don't change it. Let us be what we are. Yeah? So these are the enemies. And so Mitra and Varuna are destroyers of our enemies. Direct your thoughts to Varuna, of whom truth is the form, and to the great delight. So the Varuna, of whom truth is the form. So can you imagine the Godhead who has his form, his body as the truth? Yeah.
And Vlad, if I may ask, in that way, when you speak in that way in terms of the truth, is there a
Rhythm, dynamic.
rhythm? Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yes.
So it is, yeah, Rita that is there. Okay.
Yeah, Rita Pesha Se Varuna.
Yeah.
And next one, the second verse, Tahi Kshatram Aviharotam Samyak Asuryamashate Adha Vrateva Manusham Suvarna Dhai Darshatam. For it is they who attain to the undistorted force of the entire mightiness. Then shall thy humanity become as if the workings of these gods. It is as if the visible heaven of light were founded in thee. What a profound vision. Just have a look at this. Then shall thy humanity become as if the workings of these gods, of the of the divine existence and the divine consciousness. It is as if the visible heaven of light, Svarna, Suvarna Dhai, got established and became visible in you, Darshatam. For these are the representatives of the dynamic truth who have access to the perfect power of the self, which is undistorted force. It is by that force that our humanity can become the fields of their workings. It is as if Svar itself becomes founded here in us, fully visible. What is interesting is this force, because and Sri Aurobindo many times speaks about it, that knowledge is not enough, force is necessary, power. There is knowledge, there is higher knowledge, but it will not change nature. It has no power over nature somehow. It will change only attitudes or certain elements of our understanding, but fundamentally nature will go on in the same way, trying to evolve. Yeah? But to change the very nature, the existence, the existential aspect, the material part of nature, you need supramental force. And then only the real change can take place. and transform our nature into this prototype or Adhar carrying the spirit. Then our humanity can become the fields of their workings. We need a force. By the way, this is a constant topic in Savitri also. He speaks all the time, but the Lord of Death speaks to Savitri. He says, he looks at her and says, oh, he already speaks it to her. And if the Divine Mother is with you, please look into my eyes that I could see also. I can also look into her eyes. The Lord of Death speaks to Savitri, can you imagine? And then he suddenly wakes up and he says, but what is knowledge? It is not by knowledge that this world is built. It is by power. If you are her, then reveal your power. Only then I will follow you. It's very interesting that knowledge is not enough. Power is needed, force. And here we all fail. We are seeking knowledge as if it is power. And then we come to this world and then, money, power, for example, or any power is in the hands of some idiots or some nice people, not all idiots, who are managing it in some way or another according to their wish or their whims or their some other principles. And no knowledge can touch them. They are not responding to knowledge. So we have a gap between knowledge and power in this world. Power is on one side and knowledge is on the other.
We don't have that problem in the United States, Vlad.
Right. It's all avidya. There's no knowledge at all, so we don't have a problem. It's just power.
But I'm saying this, that knowledge would not really be attractive for these people of power. That's what I'm saying. Exactly. You are representing now more than, and look at Russia. Russia is even worse. 100 times worse than the US. Right. US is trying to catch up with Russia, I think. So become close friends.
Close second now. Closing the gap.
But we are in the time of a great ordeal, the cleansing, all the forces of darkness. The darkness deepens before the dawn, before the break of new light. There will be a deepening darkness. So we are in this period. All stupidity, everything comes up. So that's why force, all the time force. Dynamic truth has a specific feature. It can reactivate power in the way of the higher consciousness. This is something which we lost. We lost the very concept that it was possible. Nobody thinks in those terms anymore. That the life can be true in accordance with the higher consciousness. So, and here we stopped, number 3. Tavam eshe rathanam urvim gavyuti mesham rata havyasya sushtutim dadhrik stomaich manamahe. Therefore you, O gods, I desire. Tavam, those two of yours, eshe, I desire. For the rushing of these chariots, your white pasture of the herds, Rathanam urvim gavyutim esham, of these chariots I desire the vast pasture, gavi uti. So this pasture of the herds can be translated also as the expansion of light of consciousness. I desire the swiftnesses or how to put it, I desire the light of consciousness vast of these powers of swiftnesses. This is something very unique to translate, because Gavi is light, Gauch, and Uti is expansion and protection and support. Urvi is vast, so this vast expansion of light of Rathas, of the swiftnesses, of the movements of force. So these movements of force of these two great Godheads generate some kind of light of knowledge and expansion. And we, or I, desire it. I aspire for this light of consciousness, which is effective, which comes from force. This is an indication of the supramental force which can change things in this world. At least I think like this. So strongly we fix our minds by affirmations upon the perfect hymn affirmation, sushtutim, of the one whose offering has already been accepted, Rata Havya. So Rata Havyasya, of the one whose Havya, the offering, was Rata, was given, was granted, was bestowed upon. Of him, Sushtutim, perfect affirmation of the Godhead. Dadhrikstomach manamahe, we think manamahe, or we meditate, we fix our minds, as he says, by this affirmation, stomach, by the stomos, which are these praises, yeah, or stotras, or stomos, which is from root stu, to affirm the divinity within our consciousness. So by these affirmations of you within us, yeah, we, upon the perfect hymn affirmation, upon the perfect establishment of your consciousness of the one, or of the one whose offering has already been accepted. What a complex vision. Let me read my this. Rata Havyasya is the name of the Rishi of this hymn. Actually, this is the Rishi whose offering was granted, or whose offering was accepted. Sri Aurobindo translates it differently with a deeper connotation. Our mind sees on his perfect affirmation when the God receives our bounteous offerings. He transmits the quality of the Rishi's name onto the action of those whose minds are seeking after these higher planes of consciousness, which is quite interesting, for it creates one space within the mind. So basically, this identity with the Rishi and his name, kind of, it is, and this constant word in the Veda, stuti, stotra, stoma, sushtuti, when we translate it as praise or worship, actually it is not really worship or praise. It is the acceptance and expression or affirmation of the divinity, of the higher consciousness within our active, embodied state of consciousness, which is closer to our reality, to the embodied state, to the manifested, to the physical nature. So within this mind by which we now think, in it we want to establish this perfect affirmation of these greater Godheads. And then we become the field for the play of their forces. Then we feel their presence, and then they can flow into our physical nature and change it also together with us. So this is the major movement of the sacrifice. But what a beautiful first line, where he says that of these swiftnesses, of these chariots of yours, you are those who I desire, or these swiftness movements, these which are coming or which are of this expansion of light, vast expansion of light, which you generate by your swiftnesses, by your force. So the force generates consciousness in this case. In the supramental view, it is so. In the embodied state, it is not so. The force is not force is not generated by knowledge. How to put it really? Knowledge is by itself, and force is as if generated by something else. Here, the knowledge is generated by power. It's as if knowledge is generated by power also in the evolutionary sense. When we are evolving from the force, there is knowledge arising. The knowledge of consciousness. The consciousness is in, how to say, inbuilt. It is intrinsic in material manifestation. It is there hiding. The supermind is hiding in the atom, in the force, in the structure, in the vital force of the atom, in the mental force of the vital, in the supramental force of the mental, within the mind, within the vital, within the physical. So in order for it to evolve, it evolves as if from force, not from consciousness. Evolution. But in this case, it is involutionary force. It is in the same manner, from the supramental force, the knowledge comes. And I want that expansion of that consciousness, which comes from the effective force of yours. This is what I am arriving at. Because when we take rathas, movements, horses and chariots, they will represent these swiftnesses, movements of force. They always represent something substantial and powerful. And Gavi, or cows, they represent, and bulls represent the light of knowledge. I do not know whether it is very convincing, but it is so. You remember we read in the Hymns to the Mystic Fire, Gregory, we read that Rishi asks for the gift, or for the wealth of the horse with the cow in front. I was referring to it.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. So they are always going together. But the knowledge has to, how to say, to determine the power. But here, in this case, he wants to have an expansion of knowledge or consciousness, which is coming from the force. And that is interesting. It's as if evolutionary, but it is involutionary. In both cases, they are coming from the supramental force. The knowledge is emanating or shining from something which is self, substantial power. It's as if the sun is the self, the Atman, but the light which it emanates, is consciousness. So to say. So being is first, and consciousness is second to it. Sat Chit Ananda, not Chit Sat Ananda. All right. So here's number 4. Adhahi kavya yuvam dakshasya purbhih adbhuta niketona jananam chikethe puta dakshasa. Let me move it down. Then indeed, O transcendent Godheads, you conquer the seer wisdoms by the full floodings of the illumined discernment. You perceive knowledge for these human creatures by a perception in which the judgment is purified. Adha, then, indeed he, kavya, yuvam, you, where is conquer, wait a minute, chiketi, you become conscious. Yeah? Of these kavya dakshasya purbhih adbhuta, or you you conquer the seer wisdoms, kavyani, yeah? The poems, by the full floodings, purbhih, of the illumined discernment, dakshasya. So as you remember, Daksha is the supramental godhead, one of the Adityas, who is coming after the Bhaga. So by the fullness of Daksha, by his fullnesses, as it were, floodings of the Daksha, you, Adbhuta, transcendent Godheads, that's how beautifully he translates this Adbhuta, beyond being, becoming, transcendent Godheads, you too, Yuvam, conquer, that's how he puts it, conquer, Chikete, discern, I would put it. I will come to my interpretation. Let us keep his first. You get these by the floodings of the Daksha, you get the Kavyani, the seer wisdoms, Niketuna, and you perceive Chikete for these human creatures, Janana, by the perception, Niketuna, in which the judgment is purified, Puta Dakshasa. So, Puta Dakshas and Niketu, or Ketu, two words going together in the instrumental case. So, by the purified discernment and by the consciousness with purified discernment, you perceive of the people, of the human. Shubhendra says for the human creatures, but it is of, literally. Okay, I read my interpretation. It is only then, after our rigorous and powerful affirmation, that you finally conquer our wisdom by the floodings of your intuition. And thus you perceive in the human creatures all by your complete and perfect perception. You who have pure discernment. Most probably you are not able to really understand anything because these words are all very full of meaning, and when we read them, they're kind of, the meaning is as if there, but at the same time, it is only then, after our rigorous and powerful affirmation, when we affirmed them within our consciousness, that you finally conquer our wisdom, or conquer wisdom for us, or the wisdom we have, but we are not aware of. The wisdom of our innermost embodied self, which has to come to the front by the floodings of your intuition. When you overflow us with your intuitions, our inner being can come to the front. And thus you perceive in the human creatures all by your complete and perfect perception. And then these transcendental Godheads can have perception of the divine in us. You who have pure discernment. There are two movements in this Vedic yoga, so to say. I will be calling it Vedic yoga because in the later yoga, these two are not so obvious. One is this, that we represent the divine here. Within us, there is Antaryamin, Angushta Matra in the heart. And there is Chaitya Purusha in us. There is the Purusha in the heart, yeah? The hidden flame, the fire within the heart, which is to be discovered. Now, it cannot be discovered easily by the mental and vital consciousness because they do not have access to that depth, to that subliminal depth. So, for that purpose, we invoke the gods, the higher faculties, the transcendental faculties of our consciousness, universal consciousness, which by the flooding of their full floodings of their illumined discernment, they bridge, or they build the bridge between our innermost nature and our surface consciousness. And in that flooding, our inner being can, how to say, step out, as it were, or come to the surface. And since we are thinking in terms of this surface consciousness, we become aware of our inner self. So this is the technique. We need a bridge. And this bridge can be built by those devatas. That's why we invoke them. Otherwise we could do without them if we could. And then, once they do this, they perceive knowledge of these human creatures by a perception in which the judgment is purified. So they will be perceiving for us their or our knowledge, where judgment will be, or where the mentality will be totally luminous. There will be no wrong judgment. There will be no wrong knowledge anymore. They will continue to work within us. Their universal consciousness will continue to work, though we become a nuclear, a center in front. But we will use them as our faculties of universal consciousness. They become our faculties, these gods. And our innermost being becomes the Lord of the creation. There is one more here thing. The higher consciousness of the transcendent Godheads, Adbhuta, finally overflows the poetic and prophetic wisdom of the human seers. It answers to the call, as it were, and takes full charge over the perception of human beings. Most probably these mantras were meant to invoke these powers and, embody them. Oh, yeah, somebody writes something. Yeah, I'm fading again.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm fading in my consciousness. Sinking in. All right, let us take next and see whether it is the last one, most probably. No, there are two more. I'm quoting here from the Kingdoms and Godheads of the Greater Mind, the supramental chapter in the Savitri. We will come to it again. It is so very beautiful poetry. Okay, number 5. Tadritam Prithivi Brihat. Finally come to the earth. Shravah Esha Rishinam Jrayasanao Aram Prithu Atiksharanti Yama Bhih. O wide earth, Prithivi, that vast, that truth, for the movement of inspired knowledge of the sages, that truth for the moment of inspired knowledge of the sages, widely the twine, speed with full capacity, twine that means Mitra and Varuna. Our chariots pass, streaming beyond in their travelings. What are these chariots? These are movements, swiftnesses of consciousness. They go beyond in their travelings, beyond the darkness and the enemies, the suffering and evil of the lower existence. It is interesting that the Rishi invokes here the earth, Prithivi, which literally means expanded or wide. That rhythm, ritam, or earth, wide supporter of our existence here, is vast, in search of knowledge of the rishis. Widely, you too speed up all over, and they flow beyond heaven and earth with their chariots. Tad ritam, that rhythm, that dynamic truth, all vast embodiment in matter, all vastness in material manifestation, Prithivi, Prithivi Brihat. It is vast, that truth, dynamic, or you vast embodiment in in material nature. Shravach Eshach. It is, in this case, Esha is actually a movement, the word which means movement. Shravas, of inspired knowledge, Shravas. Rishina, of the rishis. So this search, or this desire, or better to say, this aspiration, this intention, full of inspired knowledge of the rishis. This is it. This is the dynamic truth vast. Here, O Prithivi, it is already here. In matter, it is touching the surface. That's why he says, O Prithivi, O vast material nature. It is here. You have to recognize its value within yourself. You can see that you and that spirit are one. That's what Rishi wants to convey. And widely, these two speed with full capacity. Jrayasanao Aram Prithu. our chariot path streaming beyond in their travelings. Atiksharanti yamabhi. Our chariots means simply chariots or yamabhi. With the chariots, we are crossing beyond Atiksharanti, or they are crossing beyond the rishis to that vast beyond. Um, this connection of the transcendental in this world is established through their aspirations, through their hymns, and we can join that flood or that movement or that desire of the rishis. Esha, Rishina. Here all the words are given. Shravayasha, desire of praising. It's just in the dictionary. I don't think it is. It is the desire of inspirational knowledge. Okay, and the number 6, the last one. Ayadvam iyachakshasa mitravayam chasurayah vyachishte bahupaye yatemahi svarajiye. When, O Mitra, you have your far voyaging vision, and we are the illumined seers, may we arrive in the effort of our journey to a self-empire, spread out widely open and governing its multitudes. Incredible. Governing its multitudes. Empire. Self-empire governing its multitudes. Widely open. What a vision. You most probably also feel this incredible, exclusive, I do not know, approach of Vedic rishis. Yeah? It's a pure spiritual substance. It's something which is going far beyond bypassing our mental reasoning or this, kind of mental way of dealing with, rational way of dealing with symbolic knowledge. There is no symbolic knowledge, as it were, as if it is direct or something. The images are direct. When you have established your far-reaching vision and we become illumined seers by it, may we come to the self-realization of a self-empire, perfect within and without, protected by many, manifesting in multitudes. The formless and the formed were joined in her. This is from Savitri. Immensity was exceeded by a look. A face revealed the crowded infinite. All right, I will stop here. Yeah, I'm already over time. Sorry. You can see it now. Okay, we can stop here. If you have something to say or to ask, please. Briefly.
Simply thank you.
Yes. And I just have this picture of Fortunate Gregory in a place that faces the sunrise.
Thank you, Lynn. I do. We did sun gazing this morning.
All right. Okay, then I'm closing the mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santo Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Namaste.